or the Green One, and the Jamia al-Omar Mosque near Bethlehem is dedicated to him. Even though St. George was a soldier in the Roman army, he gave up his military command when he converted to Christianity. Under the Emperor Diocletian, he was ordered to take part in the persecution of Christians and refused. He went to the Roman Emperor without an army, without a sword, simply himself. He went to the Emperor and challenged him personally to stop persecuting Christians. Unfortunately, the Emperor imprisoned him and later beheaded him. So the story of St. George is one of dissent and challenge to power. It is one of fighting for the rights of a religious minority and fighting for religious freedom. It is these things that have a noble and proud history in England, a history that Unitarians have contributed to a great deal. St. George's Day should be a day of celebration of the English tradition of dissent, a tradition that has a lot to do with Unitarians. We are dissenters, non-conformists, historically persecuted and barred from things like universities and government, and even today in this town still barred from some schools. We have fought for the civil rights not only of ourselves historically, but also of other religious groups. In the 18th and 19th century, we supported the civil rights of Catholics. Now, Unitarians in those days disagreed very fundamentally with Catholics. They would have had very little time for them theologically, and we're still obviously a different sort of a faith from the Roman Catholic Church, but in those days it was much worse, the connection between, the separation between those two groups. And yet Unitarians still said we need to have emancipation, we need to have civil rights for Catholics, because religious freedom is fundamentally important. People should be free to come to their own beliefs, even if we may personally disagree with those beliefs. And we continue today to fight for religious freedom all over the world. We are a part of the great English tradition of dissent. All those who defied the powers that be for democracy and freedom, levellers, Chartists, suffragettes, those who fought for democracy, those who fought for the vote for all people, those who campaigned against slavery, those who campaigned for human rights, for the rights of minorities and immigrants. Things like the 1896 mass trespass across the West Pennine Moors, when the people of Bolton rose up and said, we have a right of way across these lands, these hills that are ours, against the landowner. These are the stories of St. George's Day. This is the true meaning of St. George's Day. These are English stories. These are English values. But they are also universal values that link us with all those in the world who fight for a fair world, including those who fought against us, like Gandhi. As the Quran says, God makes no distinction. We Unitarians believe in the unity of humanity, in one global commonwealth, that God, whatever God is a universal presence connected equally to all people. We believe in a commonwealth where all people are treated with dignity and respect because of that sacred work. And we can celebrate these global values, but also celebrate their local manifestations in English history. But of course, as Unitarians, we don't believe in saints per se. We don't believe some are more holy or saintly than others, but that all people have the same sacred potential within them. So any so-called saint must always point us towards our own sainthood. The story of St. George should inspire us to stand up for the same subversive principles of dissent and religious freedom. It's time we celebrated St. George. It's time we rebranded St. George's Day, not as a day to celebrate a narrow nationalism, but rather the real story of standing up for religious freedom and dissent, and the manifestation of that story in the history of England, in our history. This is something we can celebrate. This is something we can be proud of. This is something we can fly a flag for. Let's celebrate this. A few days late. Happy St. George's Day.